The American dream. It's what we strive for. As parents, you encourage your children to get good grades, go to college, because a college degree will open doors for you. With a college degree, you'll be able to find a job that you love. That was the promise of my parents' generation. That was the message beat into my brain as a child and high school student. My favorite is, the best investment one can make is in herself. The American dream. How much are you willing to pay? $25,000? $100,000? $250,000? Is a college education really worth becoming enslaved to student loan debt that will haunt you for decades? Millions of young Americans have discovered that they have become indentured servants the moment they graduate. The entire system encourages our young people to take out whatever college loans you need. Don't worry about how you'll pay them back, because it's a good investment. Do you know what happened on May 8th of this year? According to Mark Kantrowitz, a nationally recognized financial aid expert who's actually testified to Congress on behalf of student loans, reported that the student loan debt in the United States surpassed $1 trillion. Wow. Of that, $453 billion is federal, $546 billion is private. It's now higher than credit card debt, my friends. $1 trillion, what does this mean? It increases by $2,854 every second. In the 6 minutes I'm speaking this morning, it will grow by $1,027,440. And did you know that 14% of all college graduates will default on their loans within the first 3 years? Since 1978, college tuition has gone up by a horrific 900%. In the past 25 years, my own lifetime, that means that tuition has increased at an average rate that is 6% higher than that of inflation. And not to mention, in the last decade, as I'm sure you've experienced, the cost of college textbooks has tripled. The Business Insider reports that 1 in 2 graduates are jobless or underemployed. 40% are in a job not requiring a degree. Starting salaries have declined. I believe that college is a huge gamble. For some Americans, it works out well. But sadly, millions of others have found themselves completely unable to find a quality job in this economy. And yet they are still trapped by a nightmare of student loan debt from which there is very slow escape. According to a recent study by the Heldrich Center for Workforce Development at the State University of New Jersey, only 56% of graduates in 2010 were able to find employment. And of that 56%, 4 people out of 10 reported that their degree helped them get into the field that they wanted to be in. 17 million kids went to college and became waiters, waitresses, cashiers, and parking lot attendants. In our great country, over 25% of all retail salespersons have a college degree. I truly believe that college is a gamble. Do you know who these people are?
Yeah.
Do you know what they all have in common?
Money.
They're all college dropouts.
I'm dropping it.
Look at Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple. Look at Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook, and Ben & Jerry's from the delicious Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Look what they created from forward-thinking ideas. A grim portrait of our nation is being painted. There are now more hardworking Americans sitting at home, unemployed, without jobs, than at any other point since the Great Depression. Our president has pushed Congress to pass the American Jobs Act. The purpose of this bill was to extend unemployment by $49 billion, to preserve current teaching jobs, not create new ones, preserve current teaching jobs with $35 billion. And $8 billion of the bill was for tax breaks to small businesses, which President Obama defines as having 50 employees or more. Most small businesses today can't afford 50 employees. Small businesses are where most jobs begin, where a graduate can get a foot in the door. And what about our graduates, Mr. President? I listened to President Obama's Job Act speech twice, and I read it once. And I was appalled. What bothered me the most is that he wants to dump all this money into the schools, but not once did he mention what impact that money would have on the graduates coming out with that quality education. Did the bill pass? Sadly, it did. It failed 5 times before garnering its 60 votes to pass. Sadly, on April 5th of 2012, as part of the parents' Startup America initiative, he signed the bill. Do you want a real stimulus package for our economy and our graduates? About the only idea that sounded promising to me was a bill presented to Congress by a lawyer of the name Robert Applebaum to forgive student loans. Applebaum's bill says, and I quote, "Forgiving the student loan debt of all Americans will have an immediate stimulative effect on our economy. With the stroke of the president's pen, millions of Americans would suddenly have hundreds, or in some cases thousands of dollars with which every month to spend on nailing sectors of the economy. As consumer spending increases, businesses will begin to hire, jobs will be created, and a new era of innovation, entrepreneurship, and prosperity will be ushered in for all. A rising tide does in fact lift all boats. Forgiving student loan debt, rather than tax cuts for corporations, billionaires, and millionaires, has a much greater chance of helping to rise that tide in a much shorter time frame. The future economic success of this country is wholly dependent upon a well-educated, prosperous middle class. Instead of saddling entire generations with debt from which there is no escape, let's empower the American people to grow this country on their own." End quote. The American dream. It's still there in the fabric of our nation's DNA. But how one gets there is a very different road in this new generation. The promises of doors opening because of a college degree has faded to almost non-existent. For some fields, it is necessary, don't get me wrong. But that doesn't mean a job will be there when you graduate. The portrait of our nation's graduates is bleak at best. Graduates are starting their own American dream, upside down, at a disadvantage, in debt, living at home to make ends meet, taking any job they can, not even relating to their field of study. And yet we struggle to make our interest payments. I say we because I am one of those students. I worked hard, I got good grades, I went to college, I got a degree, but I graduated when the economy tanked in 2008. I was one of the lucky few who was able to find a job in their field working in a portrait studio. But with a tanking economy, nobody was spending money. So 2 years later, I was laid off from my job. I notified my lenders for forbearance. They said, "Oh yeah, sure, no problem, we'll get it taken care of. It's a sketchy time." So, searching for a job, not being able to find one, I decided to go overseas as a volunteer missionary teacher to help somebody else while our economy recuperated. However, lo and behold, when I come back, I find out that, in fact, I was never granted forbearance. I'm in default. Key Bank, my private lender, sold my loan to Wells Fargo, the bank in which I bank at. Wells Fargo thought they had the right to deplete my certified deposit of $3,000. Then Wells Fargo continued to suck my savings dry, $400 out every month, April, May, June, and July of 2011, leaving me with nothing when I came back to America. The collection agencies won't settle with a monthly payment plan I can afford. They're threatening to sue me, and they've ruined my credit. Colleges have joined the race of greed, turning a parent's mandatory college education into a very profitable business, crippling the very people they educate. Do I have the answer to this dilemma? No, I do not. That was not the goal of my presentation. My goal this morning is to heighten your awareness of this issue in hopes of producing more thoughtful votes on this issue. Vote smart, my friends.